Hey everyone, welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to be going over my initial thoughts on Charon. For those of you who don't know, Charon is Smite's newest character release, and that released actually quite literally today. I'm recording this the day of. And so I was able to dabble around with this character a little bit, and to be honest with you, he feels really good in terms of fluidity. His character model looks really cool, sound effects are awesome. He also flows very well, and he kind of feels like a little similar to Cleo's release, if you guys remember that one. Cleo felt really clean, still does of course. And yeah, so all of that aesthetically looks very pleasing and all the cool stuff. So just to really get into his abilities real quick, he has the typical 4 different abilities as well as a passive. So Charon's passive is essentially if ally minions die next to him, and also ally camps die next to him, they grant him a stack, and they also drop a coin on the floor. He can go ahead and pick up that coin. It gives him 1 gold, which is really cool. So it's another way to get gold. But the stack that he gets, when he returns to Fountain, it gets consumed and turned into maximum HP. So each stack is a total of 2 maximum HP, and he can go all the way up to 350, and I believe he can hold about 20 stacks at once. So it's a really cool passive that scales to late game. Definitely unique. Charon's 1 is a pretty cool ability. It does a little bit of damage. I believe, or I got this first when I was playing him. Still kind of like messing around with him. Again, these are my initial thoughts, but I believe this is like probably his best clear out of all 3 of his abilities to get. And he essentially, it does 90 base damage, and if he hits somebody with it, it silences them for 1 second in an explosion, so it can also silence nearby enemies if they're kind of like super grouped. And it also creates a trail slow, kind of like Arachne, if you want to think about it like that, where her spiders tag onto somebody and they start running away, and it creates like a slow trail of webs. That's pretty much what like Spectral Surge does, and it kind of like follows them for a little bit. So it's a pretty cool ability and pretty unique. For Charon's 2, called Damnation, it does a little bit of damage, and one of the big things actually is it grants attack speed slow. We'll kind of go over this stuff in a second. But it also grants shield HP to both Charon and his allies. So essentially if he hits somebody with it, if he or allies hit them with an ability or auto attack them, and they have to be separate instances. So for example, if you have Anubis ticking with this enemy with his 3, it's only going to proc once. But if Anubis like auto attacks, for example, or hits 3 different abilities, it's going to proc 3 separate times. But in any case, they get a shield, and you get a shield too. So if you hit an enemy that has this sort of debuff, we'll call it, applied on them for 3 seconds, you get a shield equal to what the stats say they are. Pretty much base stats plus 3% of Charon's maximum HP, capping off at 15% of Charon's maximum HP. And each subsequent shield is also reduced by 25%. So it's not like you get 100%, another auto attack 100%, so on and so forth. It's 100%, 25, 25, so on and so forth. But super cool ability, and pretty unique, honestly, as well. So Charon's 3rd ability, Swift Voyage, pretty much is just him dashing. Think of it like RDO Bear Dash. That's pretty much what it's like. It's pretty much him being super fast and speedy, or like Geb 1. He's not gonna like fling very fast like Merlin Flicker or like Mercury Dash, something like that. It's gonna be like more of movement speed over time. But what's cool about this is it roots people, which is nice, for 1 second and for 0.5 seconds. This ability is cool, and I think it gives them a lot of mobility, but I kind of wish it also did something more. I was thinking in my head, like, it would actually be pretty cool if you went over allies with this ability, if it increased their movement speed by a certain amount for a couple seconds or something like that. I think that would be a pretty cool ability. Kind of copying Atlas a little bit, but, you know, not adding the slow immunity or anything like that, just increasing their MS. And finally, we have Charon's ult. So Charon's ult is called Summon the Sticks, and it's actually a really cool ability. It's a slow moving tidal wave that pretty much like traverses the map in about I don't even know how many units, but it's not like super wide, but it can be in fights. And so what's cool is like it fears enemies that get hit by it all the way up to 1.2 seconds. If your allies are inside like the wave, if they get hit by it, it gives them protections, and also gives them movement speed if they're directly behind the wave. And the protections last for about 3 seconds. So overall, those are his 4 abilities and his passive. Really cool things, but let's kind of like get into my initial thoughts with this character. So I already said like he looks, you know, aesthetically pleasing and he feels good and so on and so forth. However, he feels underwhelming, to be honest with you. And I think the reason is because they try to do too much with this kit. So the cool thing that I like about his kit is they do have a lot of different things, right? He's got a lot of mobility, which feels great. He's got a little bit of ally buffing, which is cool, giving them shields, movement speed, protections, that kind of stuff. So that's really nice. And he's also got a little bit of CC, so he can have like a little bit of peel. However, when I was playing him, it didn't really feel like I could peel for my allies that way. I mean, if we go back and look at all his CC, his best CC is obviously from his ult, a 1.2 second fear. Now, that's a great CC. But if we look at the rest of his kit, his regular kit, stuff that he's going to have up pretty much all the time, the slow only scales up to 20%, it starts at 10%. So the slow isn't really doing too much. It might be good for chasing, but it's not going to be good peel. And you can silence somebody for about a second. Now that's fine, that's nice. You can definitely make some good plays with that. But however, it's 1 second and it's pretty much instantaneous. It's not what I'm looking for, I guess, in a Guardian to have a more concrete answer. Looking at his 3 is also some CC. He gets a root. So overall, he's got about 3 CCs. We'll say 4 because we'll tag on the slow that he has, because he has 2 CCs in his one. But he's got about 4 CCs, and they're pretty much, besides his ult, they're not really too peel oriented of CCs. So I actually do think that in the future, this character is going to get some buffs. I don't think this character gets nerfs. Looking at his damage numbers also don't feel that high. When you're playing him as support, and I was even talking to a solo laner that was playing him as solo, and he said he just wasn't doing that much damage. But if you look at the numbers as support, what's nice is he does have 4 damaging abilities, so usually characters like that, like Sobek or any kind of character that's going to have 4 damaging abilities, they are going to dish out definitely more damage than, say, for example, a Ganesh or a Gab, right, who has an ability dedicated to protecting their allies. Ganesh in his silence, Gab in his shield, so on and so forth. But even with 4 abilities, Charon still doesn't feel like he does that much, and I think a lot of it is because his base numbers are fairly low. First of all, in support, you're typically not building that much power, if any power at all, but just like removing the scaling a little bit, looking at his base numbers, his 1 only scales up to 210, his 2 scales up to 190, and then his 3 scales up to 280. So his 3 obviously being the most damaging ability. Then of course you have his ult, but just talking about in terms of his regular abilities, this is a little bit underwhelming damage. When I was playing him, it just didn't feel that good. It didn't feel like I was really being a threat to people, especially because you don't have lockdown. The way I like to think about it is like, what makes good sports is you have some sort of threat to you. Say for example, Athena has her dash taunt. She's a perfect threat source because she dash taunts, she has that CC threat and that damage threat. She actually does a decent amount of hidden damage, but regardless of that, she has the CC threat, but Charon doesn't really have the CC threat. He doesn't have the lockdown threat like other supports do. So then if you look at his damage, you would say, okay, surely he has damage, but it really doesn't feel like that. Despite having 4 damaging abilities, because the base numbers feel pretty low, he doesn't really feel like he has that much damage. So overall, his kit feels definitely a little underwhelming to me. I do want to see them maybe make that 3 changes I talked about earlier, where his allies get some stuff. And I do want to see them increase the slow duration at the very least on the 1. I think, first of all, 10% is like almost nothing. It's very little. But only scaling up to 20% for like late game slows is very little as well, it feels like. I think 25-30% is definitely... I wouldn't say 20% is very little, but 25-30%, it's just better in general, I think. In any case, though. But the one thing I do think he actually is pretty strong with is his laning phase. So Charon has ranged auto attacks. I should have mentioned this earlier, but I guess we're getting to it now. And he actually has pretty fast attack speed. Now, his auto attacks don't feel like they do too much damage. It's only about like 30-35 level 1 to minions and stuff like that. But his attack speed's pretty quick. He's kind of like, feels more a little bit like Ao Kuang. Definitely not as fast as Ao Kuang, don't get me wrong. But like in terms of attack animation, it's kind of like more on the Ao Kuang side, instead of like, say, like Heim would be as much slower animation. And so he's definitely getting more auto attacks off per second, and their range too, so he can actually, like, you know, hit these things without putting himself in as much danger. So that feels nice. And I think the other big thing that makes his laning phase pretty strong, from my experience, is actually his 2. Because the thing about his 2 is it has a 30% attack speed slow. So here's like something that's crazy about it. When you hit the enemy ADC, reducing their attack speed by 30% is a lot. I think this is actually an ability that should get nerfed a little bit. Just have the attack speed scale up, kind of like how you have the shield HP scale up, right? Like as you level, maybe start off at 10% and like max it out at 30% as you level, like about 0.5 per level or so. But the thing about that is like the 30% attack speed, so if you hit the enemy ADC with this, they really cannot play the fight. And on top of that too, not only is the enemy getting significantly debuffed, but then your allies hitting the enemy and getting an HP shield. That's really, really, really nice to have. And so I do feel like his laning phase is really strong, but I feel like once he gets out of laning, for all those things mentioned earlier, it just feels very weak and underwhelming. I felt like consistently more times than not that I just could not peel for my allies. And that's like a really big issue, especially if you're playing support. If you feel like you can't peel for your allies, then obviously something's wrong. Either the kit's not right, or maybe you're not playing him right. Again, these are just my initial thoughts. So we might see down the line, like, people will get better with him, use his combos better, so on and so forth. But overall, again, just doesn't feel like he has the peel or the damage. He doesn't really feel too much of a threat in support at the very least. In terms of his CDs, cooldowns are about standard to a little bit on the lower end, which are nice. His 3 is 15 seconds, 2 starts at 14 but scales down to 12, and his 1 is 15 seconds flat. Also, his ult is 110 seconds. So actually, they've been on the medium side, ult being on the higher side. I actually think that they should probably drag the ult down, but regardless, his best ability, in my opinion, besides the ult, his best ability in his regular kit, I think, is his 2. His 2 just gives pretty good buff advantage for your ally, and it just makes, I think, lane in your favor more times than it isn't. But overall, this character is... I think his release is actually pretty positive. I don't think he's OP at all. He's a bit underwhelming. Kind of feels a little bit like Baba release, but maybe not quite as bad as Baba release. Baba release was just horrendous. Like, nobody was playing her for a very long time, at least not higher level play. But yeah, guys, take it easy. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. I hope you all enjoyed it, as always. And please don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed this kind of content. I love doing this stuff. And I play Smite every day, pretty much, over at twitch.tv/dashboard. I stream every single morning, so if you guys want to check that out and have some fun, go over there. But yeah, guys, take it easy and have a great one. See ya.